just the lay of the land for the next hour, right? So I'll introduce the panelists, ask them questions. Of course, it's going to be interactive. We've kind of grouped these questions into sections. You'll hear more about it. But then I'm going to keep this interactive. So I'm going to be polling the audience. We're going to ask you questions. Of course, you're going to have the opportunity to ask us questions. And if that's not interactive enough, the bar is going to open up at the end of the panel discussion, right? So with that, let me start by introducing our panelists. First up, Chris Hammond. Chris is professor of computer science at Northwestern University. He's the co-founder of Narrative Science and a past Chicago Innovation Award winner. He directs Northwestern Center for Advancing Safety of Machine Intelligence, fellow of the Association of the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence, and if that's not enough, he advises the UN on AI. Chris, please. Doesn't matter. You can pick. You can pick. Next, I'd like to introduce Dave Singh. Dave is the founder and CEO of Aero Digital Labs. He leads the application of AI technologies at firms across the globe and has been named among Forbes' next 1,000 entrepreneurs in 2021. Dave, welcome.
Any of these?
Yep. Next up, Eric Brown. Eric is a senior partner, product experience and engineering he's a senior partner, product experience and engineering lab at West Monroe. Specializes in technology integration, including AI, and is the host of the This is AI podcast. Eric, please, welcome. And last but not the least, we have Michael Parks, co-chair of the Thomson Coburn IP practice group, a member of the firm's AI subgroup, and a partner in the firm's Chicago office with extensive experience handling AI-related litigation. Michael, please welcome. All right, wonderful. So welcome, everybody. Before we start off, just really quick, what we've done is we've gotten questions that have been generated by humans as well as by AI. We've merged them together and we've kind of put them into three separate sections. The first one is kind of just breaking the ice. The second section is more around application of AI. The third one is around ethics and the legal implications of AI. The fourth section we're going to talk about, a lot of people in this room are interested in, is it going to take my job away, right? Job, talent, skills that will be impacted because of AI. And then we'll end with like a rapid fire section. And of course, through all of it, it's interactive. Please feel free to ask questions. We'll have tons of those opportunities. All right, so let's get started. We'll start off with maybe, right now there are just so many headlines about AI. So in one sentence, what is the AI headline that most interests each of you at this moment? And Michael, maybe we'll start off with you.
So mine, I actually have two. I always break the mold on this thing. One would be the deep fakes and the problems associated with them. And the other would be the over-reliance on AI without double-checking the results.
Hey. Please hold the mic. Yeah. Yep. Eric, what about?
How's that? We good? All right.
Okay, that close. Okay.
My colleagues in the room know how difficult an ask it is of me to answer anything in one sentence, but I think if I could go by some of the themes in the headlines today, the theme that I think is most interesting right now is actually having AI drive productivity. Last year was kind of a year of crazy experimentation without a lot of organization. I think we're going to see some of that productivity realized in more meaningful ways this year.
So it's good. I think the headline that grabs my attention the most is when tech leaders pledging for ethical use of AI. And I think Eric mentioned a little bit about that, but I think the most important thing for AI to be usable and scalable is it being used by good people and is in good hands, and it's ethical. So that's one thing that really makes me hopeful in terms of the better adoption of AI in the future.
And actually, for me, it's every single headline that says AI does X, AI does Y, AI is going to kill your mom, AI's got your pets, where AI is considered one thing when it's 100 things. And ignoring the fact that you have been interacting with AI for years, and each and every one of you in this room has probably had a dozen or more interactions with AI, but we still think it's one thing, and it's not. It's hundreds of things at this point.
Great. Hundreds of things, probably hundreds of feelings. So with that, we put up the poll question for the audience. What is your attitude towards AI? And while folks are giving their responses, maybe we ask the panelists, are you excited? Are you worried, cautious, confused? In one word, not one sentence, what is your attitude towards AI?
So again, I can't do one word, right? I would say excited but cautious.
Okay, excited but cautious. Eric, what about you?
And no one used one sentence. So far, this bodes well for the bunch of rebels up on stage. Yeah, excited.
When I started my company, I was irrationally exuberant back 7 years ago. Now I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
I'll go with the Facebook relationship word, complex.
Nice, nice. Yes, but what I found really interesting is when this, we started kind of getting the results, we had 100% excited. And I was like, there isn't a single person in the room with any other feeling. So this is, I think, a little bit, hopefully the panel discussion today will help the 7% who are confused. And feel free to grab any of us afterwards for any questions as well. And then worried and cautious, that's quite interesting that a third of the folks in the room are worried and cautious. And that's going to be part of our discussion as well this evening on what are the topics that you're really concerned about, and to hear from our panelists on that, right? Great. So let's start with Chris. Chris, with new technology comes like a slew of kind of new terminology, right? So there is machine learning, AI, generative AI. Are these all the same things? What are the key terms, definitions that folks need to understand when they're talking about AI?
Well, I mean, AI is the, when you say AI, what you mean is systems that do things that if a person were doing it, you'd consider it part of being intelligent. That is to say, understanding language, predicting the future, being able to look at a situation and characterize it. Someone who walks in and goes, oh, there's a big-ass meeting here. Actually doing the things that human beings do. Machine learning, it's the support for that. That is to say, to be able to look at instances of things in the past and use that to predict the future. Generative AI, oh my God. Generative AI is very precise prediction of, in the language side, the next word. On the image side, I hate to say it, but the collection of pixels that fit into what the system has seen before and what you're saying. But when it all comes down to is that understanding that AI is the umbrella. And machine learning, data science, generative AI, dare I say it, large language models, these are all parts of an overall thing. And the challenge now is to figure out how we can fit them together.
Wonderful. Any of the other panelists, anything to add in there?
Yeah, to me, some of the terms, to build on what Chris said, they build on each other, right? I mean, you have machine learning that is using a bunch of data to make a particular prediction or classification, something like that, right? And then you have deep learning. Well, that's pulling together a number of different models that are working together to perform a more complex task. Generative AI, in addition to what Chris was talking about, well, it's producing some sort of unique output based on some sort of input. And then we have this term that I think we should all just steer clear of, which is artificial general intelligence, which I think is really tough to define, right? What does that mean? Does it mean you can take a indeterminate complex task and tell an AI to solve it? Well, maybe. Is it the singularity has happened and technology is outpacing the growth of intelligence of humans? I don't think we can really define that. I think that next step is going to build on machine learning, deep learning, and have some sort of subsystem or system of AIs that are working together to perform a non-determinate complex task. And maybe that's where we start. But the terminology is very confusing these days.
All right. So, yeah,
I
please.
think another term that comes up a lot in the legal context is fair use, which is whether the data sets that are used to train the AI models are free to use, right, under the copyright laws, or whether it's an infringement of the copyrighted work to use them to train the AI models. That's a big issue. It's a very unsettled issue, but it's paramount to the AI technology. The other thing I think is, when you talk about AI as an algorithm that simulates human intelligence, you see this come up a lot with hallucinations. It simulates human intelligence. It may not simulate an intelligent human. And I think there's a distinction between the two that needs to be drawn.
That's great.
Can I tell you a tiny thing about hallucinations? I mean, language models hallucinate, and because their job is not to tell you the truth. Their job is to just tell you what they've seen. And it turns out sometimes what they've seen really corresponds well with the truth, and sometimes it doesn't. But the nature of the systems are, once they've started not telling the truth, then they look at what they've said and said, my God, I got to keep going. And think of it as an improviser. And you say, you're a doctor. And somebody comes in and they have a nail in their head. And it's like, all right, I got to start talking. And that's what they do. And it's not so much that they're not smart. It's that or intelligent. They're a component of intelligence. They're a piece of it.
Yeah.
And fluency is, I'm sorry, the language models are miraculous. Fluency is fantastic, but we can't confuse fluency with, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, fluency with intelligence, exactly. So that's a great, right, just kind of grounding us on what's AI, Gen AI, hallucination, some of the basic terms that you've probably come across, right, when you read about AI. Maybe moving into practical applications of AI, Dave, what are some of the common problems or pain points among your clients that Aero solves with AI? And what can tech leaders in the audience glean from your recent learnings on the application of AI?
Well, thanks. So, see, there's anytime a new technology is created, there's two types of players. There's the inventors, and then there's the scalers, if you will. We like to think we are the scalers, or we enable mass scaling of a technology that has seen its maturity to a certain extent. What we are seeing over the last 7 years is that none of these companies that are trying to adopt AI are doing it to actually solve a pain point. Rather, they see the opportunity to do some things better. They can reduce cost, or they can be better at customer experience. They can make new product innovation in a much better, faster way, right? So I would frame the question in a way where it says, what are the opportunities that AI is enabling these companies to adopt in a much better, faster way? And yes, because the pain points were always there, and there were always technologies that were able to solve those. AI is a completely new paradigm shift for all of us. Some examples, so we have this thing called the Aero AI Factory. What it does is anytime a new enterprise is trying to think of a new use case, we obviously, first of all, challenge them as to whether this use case actually is going to deliver any kind of value to you or your stakeholders or your customers or whoever, right? Whether this particular use case has enough data for the use case to actually use and for the AI to actually use and train itself on. Whether that data can be secure, whether this AI implementation is going to actually go ahead and violate any of the regulations or compliance issues, right? So once we go through all of those and filter through, I would say only 1 out of 100 use cases actually qualifies. And that goes through the factory model. And finally, out of 100 POCs or pilots, you come up with 1 or 2 or 3 use cases that can actually mass scale from an AI standpoint. Whatever else is mass scaling today is not really true AI. It may be automation, which is a very lesser manifestation of AI if you really think about it. A weak AI or narrow AI, as we call that. But true AI, the world is our oyster. Maybe next 5 years, we'll see where it goes.
And that's exactly right. That's the holy grail that a lot of entrepreneurs are pushing for, because last year exactly was the year of use cases and experimentation and pilots. And the next few years is going to be the years where you're actually going to optimize it and scale with
Yeah,
AI.
we were just counting, in the last 7 years, how many POCs have gone through this factory? That's more than 1,000. Now think about that, because there's a lot of adventurous companies out there that actually want to use this and are curious about it, but only a very few actually are finally making up their minds and putting millions of dollars behind any kind of implementation. So.
Great, great. Let's turn to the audience first for a poll. Do you apply AI to optimize your work? And would love to hear from you in terms of, yes, it's helpful. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. No, but I want to explore it. Or nah, I don't even intend to. So let's see what folks are responding here. Majority of the folks are saying that yes, it's helpful. As we kind of have folks kind of look at that, I don't know if there's anything from the panelists.
I would say yes, it can be helpful.
Great point. I love the fact that there are folks who are saying that yes, but I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. So to that point, Eric, any tips on how to do it right? Where to begin? What is the process for implementation of AI?
Yeah, I have 5 steps. If you follow them, you'll always know. I think you just have to look at what's the goal as you're experimenting with it in various scenarios. What's the outcome you're looking for? I think the big problem that we ran into last year was there was so much interest and hype in generative AI. I can't tell you how many discussions we had with clients and prospects about it, that they just needed to use Gen AI. And they didn't really know why. They weren't focused in how they were experimenting with it. So the majority of those conversations turned into an opportunity that had nothing to do with generative AI. Sometimes it was machine learning. Sometimes it was just, you need a better data pipeline. You need to look at how you manage data across the organization. So I think we have to really be focused on what is the outcome that we're going to test. Maybe it's going to fail. Maybe we succeed and iterate based on that. But start there. And the great news is with the tools that we have at our disposal in AI right now, it's easier to take more of the agile and lean approach to experimentation with the hypotheses you may have about where you're going to find value, and then rinse and repeat.
Great, wonderful. Open it up for some questions on this topic or the section of application of AI. Any questions in the audience? Yep, please. Do we have a mic?
I'll just be loud.
Okay.
I know there were a lot of previous buzzwords. We went over some of the big ones that are current. Previous ones like neural network and stochastic parrot. Have you seen the least flashy application of any of the buzzwords that you've either been involved with or can share with us?
Well, I mean, stochastic parrot was less of a buzzword, and well, it was a buzzword, but it was a criticism. Neural nets we've had for a while. I think that actually my favorite thing is when you look at the things that do language, the name for them is large language models. And the thing that amazes me is people will look at a large language model and say, oh my God, it's a search engine. No, it's not. It's a large language model. Oh my God, it's a database. No, it's not. It's a large language model. It can tell me the truth. No, it's a large language model. And there are some really nice foundational phrases associated with these technologies that we should actually pay attention to. Because the moment you think something does something else, you will try to make it do something else, and you will be completely and utterly screwed by it. And large language models are really good at language, but that is what they do for a living. They're fluent and they predict the next word. But you've got to, it's like, oh, but I want to have the result of a database and turn that into language. It's like, okay, so you have to hook a database to your large language model. And we have to keep thinking about things in terms of not big solutions and not big buzzwords, but really nice, precise tools. And once you do that, it's like, oh my God, I can cobble together something that's beautiful. And it'll do the right thing, but I do it because I haven't hallucinated, let alone the system.
Anything else from the panelists before we move on to the next section? No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, see, the least flashy is things that we all experience on a daily basis. Contact centers, just take one. There's a shipping and logistics company, Fortune 50. We help them merge the traffic data with a 10-year history of weather patterns across the nation for all of their route optimization for every house that they deliver mail to on a daily basis. Now think about that for a second. That's a lot of data, and that's a lot of real-time processing, and it has to be fed into the panel that is in front of the driver who's delivering the mail that day, right? Now, yes, there is data analysis involved, there is cloud involved, there is all the other things involved, but then there is AI involved as well. The less flashy avatar of AI there. And again, I can go on and on, but there's that example right there, etc.
The way the question was asked was interesting. It gets me thinking about the most mundane implementation of one of these terms. I could use neural nets or linear machine learning models to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. It'd be a silly waste of resources and a crazy approach to do that. But I think we run the risk of falling into that trap if we don't start to understand how these buzzwords and methods and applications drive a pragmatic solution to different problems. These are all tools that we have at our disposal in a very complex set of problems right now. So let's make sure that we're not using the buzzword of the day to solve any problem.
Perfect, perfect. All right, let's move on to the next section, ethics and legality, right? Michael, of course, got to come to you on this one, right? Have the AI laws and regulations caught up to the myriad of ways that AI can be used?
Not at all. Look, the laws haven't caught up to the internet, okay? And they're nowhere near catching up to AI. It's a reactive thing that's going on here. I mean, a couple of things have become clear, at least for the time being. If you're developing an invention, the current rule from the Patent Office is you do not get protection over the AI-generated aspects of that invention, only the human-generated aspects. Same thing from the Copyright Office. And so you need to be really careful when you're inventing stuff to make sure that you have that human component so you can protect it, because you got to certify now to the Patent Office whether or not AI was used to help you generate the invention. On the other side of it, the laws are completely undecided in terms of, I mentioned fair use before, over whether or not you can use copyrighted works to train these large language models. And there's a bunch of lawsuits going on over the issue, It's very unclear how they're going to be decided. My prediction is it'll be years before we get a final answer on this. We're all at the initial trial court level, haven't made it to the appellate court, not to mention the Supreme Court. So I think it's going to be a while before there's any firm answer on any of this stuff.
Go ahead, Chris.
I understand there aren't firm answers. Those are, I have to admit, for the most part, those are rich people problems. I'm sorry. Right now there are close to 10,000 deepfake sites that are designed specifically to take the picture of your ex-girlfriend and put her into pornography. 10,000. Hundreds of thousands of women every single day are being humiliated by these sites. And we don't have laws around them. These sites these are not new. Deep fake technology has been around for quite some time. And it's like you look at them and go, well, what's the issue? It's like, well, we don't know about the technology. No, you should know about humiliation of human beings and harm, and you should legislate against that. The engagement model, that is to say, the model of you being on a site and you being, and the company making money off of your engagement on that site. Extreme engagement is often referred to by a lovely word, addiction. And we've seen this for years and years and years, and we don't respond to it. This is not new. This is like we just haven't responded to it. And I have never been able to understand this. It's like, oh, we don't understand the technology. This is not a technology issue. There's a human issue. There's a harm issue. And there are all sorts of harms that we just are ignoring. And I'll tell you a story. The guy who teaches my human-computer interaction class for the master students in AI actually came to me last summer and said, I really want to build a new class and I want to do research in an area because my kids came to me, 8 and 12, and said, we want to watch cartoons. And he said, what kind of cartoons do you want to watch? And they said, we don't know. We're going to go to Netflix and have Netflix tell us. Oh no, and then he realized that his children would not have the same level of human agency and decision-making skills that he has. Because Netflix is one thing. LinkedIn, Amazon, all media, your news, all in that realm where you're not making decisions anymore, you're being fed. And what does that do to us in terms of decision-making and our thoughtfulness? And for me, the nightmare scenario is also, by the way, same technology, Match.com, where you're not making a decision so much as you're being provided with a decision and you're vetting the decision. Very different things. And it's like these things have been around forever. I'm sorry. Collaborative filtering, that is the recommendation engines, have been around for over 25 years. And the idea that we have to catch up with them is nuts. We can identify harms and we can try to figure out a way to stop those harms from happening. And it's not the technology. The change in the technology is not it. It's that unwillingness to look at harms and realize that we have to stop them.
Love that. So let's open it up to the audience on this topic of ethics, responsible AI, legal AI. Any questions? Any comments, thoughts? It's hard to follow Chris there.
You know, there's another ethics issue that is a big deal, which is the bias inherent in the AI systems. Oh, sorry. The bias inherent in the AI systems. When they're trained on models that are biased, they yield biased results. And that is a huge issue that also is going unaddressed.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so the question was AI and the implications of AI with hacking, right? The applications of how people are using AI for hacking and what's going on with that.
Yeah, I mean, they're a powerful tool for a hacker to use to try to figure out how to build a template for different support vectors and stuff like that. There's a lot of different ways to start a denial of service attack. You have a lot of folks that can use that as a tool to formulate some sort of attack vector for that, right? And many other sorts of security risks out there. Now, we have tools. I mean, some of the fastest growing businesses out there are cybersecurity tools that are hopefully building AI that catches up to that, is able to identify some of these attack vectors as they're being implemented. But it's certainly a powerful tool for hackers that can be applied. Now, I don't think that we're going to have some self-aware AI that on its own decides to kind of implement a cybersecurity attack, but it's certainly a tool that's going to give more power to the folks that would.
You're making an assumption there. I do see Skynet in our future.
Now that's, I'm going to hold off on a response to that, because then what defines a Skynet? Why does an AI have to experience something to make that decision? But that's
A little bird
separate
told me it's
topic.
already there in a cave in the Rocky Mountains. We can
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I have a question about the creative process. Given what the brain is capable of doing, will AI rob us of the opportunity to really use our brain cells to augment our creative capabilities when AI just spits out the same old, same old? Thank you.
So,
If go ahead. No, go ahead.
no, you're the professor.
Oh
Go
no. I mean, if an AI system is spitting out drivel, then how is that going to hurt our creative process? If it creates something that is, honest to God, glorious on its own, then how is that different than? I mean, it's like when I look at my children, I don't say to them, "My God, don't be smarter than me. For God's sakes, you'll make me feel like an idiot." When we build, as we build things that are more and more intelligent, that just means we have more and more intelligent people in the world, more and more intelligent things in the world. That doesn't take anything away from us. Why would being surrounded by smart people make us stupid? It doesn't. Why would being surrounded by creative people make us less creative? They feed us. And in fact, if you look at the process by which you can create things with current generative systems, it's totally interactive. It's totally based upon a partnership between a human with an idea and a machine that can execute against that idea and will listen to the way in which you want to change that idea. And that's actually that's a marvelous thing for people who can't draw but would like to see their images in real life, who can barely write but can want to see their ideas turned into text. I mean, that's fantastic. And I mean, I live for the world in which I have a machine that's smarter than I am, because it can work with me, it can help me envision and build the things I want to build. We don't want stupid people around us. We want smarter people around us, and we want smarter machines.
Thanks.
So I have a little different answer. I mean, in the sense that, see, human beings, we are all a bunch of chemicals, end of the day, if you really, put it down to that level. So we are chemical computers. Our brains are chemical computers in that sense. For the silicon computing to one day be able to match what we have been able to, what nature has been able to do in a million of years, I think it's going to take that some time. But Chicago being the quantum capital of the world, I don't know how many of you have been keeping tabs. A couple of weeks back, there was a 60 Minutes program specially covering quantum computing. Please watch it if you haven't. AI plus quantum computing has that potential. And I'm going to end it there. So that's why I'm cautiously optimistic. That's the caution bias.
I love this question, and I'm gonna. I totally agree wholeheartedly with what Chris said too. If we use it the right way, and that's a big if right now, I think AI could usher in a period of creativity we haven't seen in a long time. I think it's really amazing. One of the things I keep underscoring when I talk about this is the human in the loop is not going away. I have a team of engineers that love using GitHub Copilot and other tools to help support the programming process. That doesn't mean every line of code isn't getting reviewed by a human to make sure that we're not doing something dumb, right? Because hallucinations and other things can happen, right? As a musician, anyone who's been in that creative loop gets stuck sometimes. What if AI could help us get us unstuck and it just kind of unlocks a new idea we hadn't really thought of before? That enables the creative process. Now, we got to prevent harm too, right? And I think if used incorrectly, like Netflix, YouTube, anyone who has teenagers, right? Do they have an original thought anymore? Or can they make a decision? We got to, as humans, help make sure that continues to happen. And we learn how to use this incredibly powerful tool as a supplement to human creativity, not a replacement.
So Eric, this is a perfect, actually, segue to the next section, which is on jobs and talent, right? And I think probably it would be good kind of to hear your thoughts on how is AI actually changing the future workforce. You touched on it a little bit, but it's not just changing of the jobs itself, but then also changing of the talent pool.
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to a couple of examples that we don't think about now, but everyone is worried about, or people in the field were worried about, right? When digital photography came around. Well, photographers are going away. Well, they didn't. They evolved, right? And now what they can do in production with digital photography is incredible. We can go through a ton of those examples, right? Even in healthcare, right? One of the great examples of computer vision is being able to be trained to identify potential issues in a radiology scan. Does that mean we're just going to hand it off to the machines and let them run with it? No, radiologists, their job's probably going to change. Will they be displaced? If you look at innovation and the types of innovation, we've got sustainable innovation and disruptive innovation. I think in the near future, we're going to see AI as an assistant to help drive sustainable innovation, make things more efficient, make us more efficient at our jobs, allow us to focus on what is more creative in the process, right? Eliminate or reduce the mundane. For my engineering team, that's what these AI assistants are doing. I think we're going to see that in a lot of fields.
Great.
So to talk about future of workforce, we got to maybe go back to the past of workforce. And back in the 1900s, I don't know how many of you are aware, but roughly half of the US jobs were in the farming sector. Today it's less than 2%. I believe that there will be an upheaval. It's already happening. I believe that there must be around 100 million jobs today in the US, give or take. Roughly 5 to 10% of that is going to get impacted in the course of the next 5 years, which means 5 to 10 million jobs are going to be impacted by AI or automation. When I say impacted, there will have to be cross-skilling, there will have to be upskilling, there will have to be other jobs that will need to get created. I mean, on a funny note, I hail from India. In India, when you're getting into a parking lot, there is a machine that hands out the ticket, but there's actually a person there who is taking the ticket out of the machine and give it to you. Right, so there's that type of jobs as well, and those type of jobs are not going to go away, in different avatars. And the higher skilled jobs, managerial, advisory, consulting, doctors, research scientists, those jobs are not going to go away. The jobs that are going to be impacted in the course of the next 5 to 10 years are going to be the ones in the middle. So there's going to be some sort of a hollowing out effect somewhere, and that hollowing out effect is going to ultimately impact some of us or all of us, but it's, I believe, for the good. So,
a few years back, I was on a panel and Andrew with Andrew Ng, and Andrew Ng was he's a deep learning dude. Was asked, someone in the audience said, my niece is taking Spanish studies in college. What advice would you give her? And he said, well, she should take STEM courses too. It was like she's got to be, she has to actually be, ramp up in computer science. And at the time, I thought, my God, that's the worst advice I've ever heard. And now it's absolutely the worst advice. We're entering a world in which we're building systems that will partner with us. And who do you want them to partner with? Do you want them to partner with more engineers? No, you want them to partner with people who actually understand you, understand the world, have some nuance of thought. And so I think the rise of people with skills that we thought were not going to be part of our businesses, I think we're looking to that in the future. People who can talk with product and talk with the machine and talk with, at some point, with the engineers, and live in partnership with systems that can take good ideas, creative ideas, and move them into reality. That's like, and again, I don't know if we're good enough for it. I don't know if we got the skills to do it. But that's the world we should be aimed at building, a partnership world.
Wonderful. But to that point, Chris, maybe you can share a bit on, from since you teach a course, you are a professor, what about the next generation in terms of the kind of skills that you believe they need to develop in order to survive, in the world 10 years later, 5 years later?
I will tell you, so I run our master's program in AI, and we actually have a training curriculum for them that's based upon improv comedy. That is, we teach them how to interact with each other. We teach them how to talk with each other. And the feedback that we have received from the kids who go out, they come. Actually, I had a team that came back and said, "Look, we had our team, and the other people on the team didn't have these skills at all. And so we talk to product, we talk to business, we run the team." And that's that moment where you realize if you can describe and explain what you're doing to someone who doesn't already understand it, which is not an engineering skill, that means you get to be connected with the rest of the world.
Wonderful.
And and we keep calling them soft skills. They're the hardest damn skills in the world. I'm sorry, I can teach someone to program way before I can teach them how to have a conversation.
Lovely. With that, let's open it up to the audience for questions. Wow. See, I knew that this topic would get the attention.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is, do you think the economic benefits of AI are going to exacerbate wealth disparities that already exist in our society, or are the benefits going to accrue to everyone and flatten the curve between wealthy and poor?
Everyone's dodging that.
No,
I think either could happen. I mean, we got to be really careful, right? I mean, the resources that are available need to be made available to everyone on the planet. And right now, there's disparity for sure.
Yeah, I think it's, I agree. It could go either way. And it depends upon who we are. It doesn't depend upon the technology at all. It depends upon who we are. I mean, I think that we could have a plan to use AI to get rid of the need for a lot of work. And then what do you do with that? And it's like, do we still evaluate people by how much work they do, how much money they make? Or do we decide we're going to evaluate people by how well they interact with each other, how well they support each other? There's I actually think that, to your earlier point, that AI has the possibility of transforming us completely as a species. But the question is whether or not we're good enough for it. If we decide that the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer, and we're just going to turn our backs on them, then no, it's not going to work out. If we decide that that we now have an opportunity to build a world in which we can actually amplify everyone's opportunity to be creative, to be clever, to work with each other, then things will go great. But I have no idea whether or not that world exists.
I'll just add, if the internet is any guide, it's going to exacerbate the disparities.
You had a question? Yeah, so basically her question is more on the banking industry. How is AI actually helping reduce fraud, crime in the banking industry? It,
So I
specific
can,
use cases, yeah.
yeah, I think so. That's a big use case, the fraud in the financial industry. I think a lot of banks right now are grappling with detecting fraud, right? As it happens. A lot of times I get a lot of alerts on my phone that, someone somewhere is trying to use your credit card. Usually it's my daughter. But but then, sometimes sometimes the alerts are right. So that's detection when, it's happening in real time. So that's actually a big advance from post-fraud alert. That something has already happened, now you got to go claim about it, right? Now the next frontier is a bank or a group of banks that we are speaking to is all about predicting fraud, right? And that's what AI is about, right? You analyze a large amount of data from a multi-metric data, and then you are able to then predict that, okay, this particular region or that particular group or that particular community is facing a lot more frauds than usual. And ultimately, that's where this is going to go at some point in time. It sounds very Tom Cruise Minority Report-ish kind of world, but that's where we are headed. But yes, there is technology obviously today that can put that use case for all of us, and you may expect an alert in the next 2 years that, hey, your card is about to get hacked. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, so there's the fraud detection piece, then there's the fraud prevention piece, there's the fraud predictive piece, and then there's the post-fraud piece of it, right? So the entire element, that whole thing that they've talked about, I think one of the biggest things that a financial industry, especially in the US, is facing is just the legacy infrastructure. Because in order to do all of these things that he's talking about, at the heart of it, you need your data. The data at the core needs to be integrated. You need to have all the right, classification, governance, all of that. And the banking system is so legacy-based and archaic that they're not able to get to the point that you're talking about.
In that meeting, by the way, just on a funny note again, one of the people, not going to name the bank, not going to name the person, actually came up with the idea that why don't we start monitoring the social media profiles of all of our VIP customers to begin with, if they're vacationing in Malaysia, for example, and tell them that, hey, there's such and such group activating there, stuff like that, right? Obviously, we crushed that idea right there, and then we're not gonna.
Although any idea like that is an idea that the other side uses. There's for all those fraud prevention, prediction, prevention, recovery, creation. So imagine just for a moment, you have control over some chunk of your company's checking account, some portion. And you get a Zoom invite to go to a meeting with your CEO, your CFO, your COO, and you go to that meeting and you have a conversation with them, and at the end of that conversation, you're instructed to transfer $25 million from your account to someone else's account. And you don't really know the account, but my God, it's your CEO, your CFO, your COO on Zoom, for God's sakes. And you recognize them and you have a great conversation, and so you do it. And it turns out that the CEO, the CFO, and the COO were never there. And imagine that happened about a month and a half ago, which is when it did. The tech is now there for us. And this is actually I think the biggest thing about generative AI and the image side and the on the animation side is we are now coming into a world where we cannot quite believe our eyes. And we have to learn to have a more sensitive, a more nuanced point of view, a more intelligent point of view when we look at what's happening to make sure it's real. And I have to admit, you hear that and you go, well, that's amazing. No, it's not. I got $500,000 off, an offshore site, videos of all the CEOs and CFOs of the Fortune 100 companies, and I could do that. right? And there's a moment for me where I think I could do that. That means there are hundreds of people who could do that. And this is the world that we're looking at now, where the possibility of fraud that looks really compelling is very real. And I love AI.
We've got a lot of questions here. Maybe we'll take one or two more and then get into the rapid fire session. Please, yes.
This is kind of a combination of the last two topics you all talked about. So obviously, Microsoft Copilot just got rolled out for Office recently, and then same with Gemini for Google Workplace. So what do you see as the biggest opportunity and the biggest risk for companies rolling this out company-wide to their teams?
I'll give my quick reaction. I think the biggest opportunity is that this, again, I'll go back to the phrasing I used before, it eliminates the mundane, right? I would love to walk into work and have a suggestion from Outlook of the emails and responses I need to draft with some suggestions on how I can do that, or, you know, reminding me of a calendar, some sort of event coming up in a couple of days that I got to prepare for it, notices I haven't done yet. That would be amazing to me. Now, I think going back to our weird historical tendency to prevent technology we don't fully understand, I think the biggest risk is that that's just not allowed, and it's blocked. That type of innovation and productivity gained is blocked by organizations that don't understand the limits of the technology. Now, there's plenty of risks in more broad AI that we're talking about, but the question was specifically about, in this case, an enterprise embedded AI in Microsoft's Office suite.
I think a risk that we find in the legal community, even with the very superior tools, are the lazy employee who's not being checked correctly by the supervisor, who, for example, in the legal context, writes a brief using an AI-generated, data set that has made-up cases, made-up stuff, and a supervisor partner who doesn't catch it, and it's caught by the court. So if everything works great, fine, but a lazy employee who's not supervised, that could be a disaster.
Great point. I know quite a few folks have questions. We do want to open up at the bar so you can then grab the panelists and have a discussion. But we'll end with a couple of rapid fire questions. No long sentences, right? Just very quick. In the spirit of AI plus IQ, right? What is or what are some of the biggest problems that you think AI can solve? Chris, we'll start with you here.
One sentence? I think that, oh geez. It is, it's going from one mode through a series of transformations to another. And I'll tell you, if I had this video and I had a system, I could say, here's the video, listen to me, and now I want you to do is chunk out my pieces. I'm sorry, I'm longer than that. Chunk out my pieces, pull them together. I want a script so I can do my own little 3-minute video, and I want an op-ed. And by the way, I want images associated for B-roll for the script.
So creative. So what I'm hearing is
no, it's transformational. Transformational. It's all about transformational. So I remain the creative controller, but it can transform.
Fantastic. Dave, what about you?
Same.
Lovely.
No, I was just going to say.
That was good. That was true rapid fire.
Yeah, I was going to say the biggest problem AI can solve is AI itself.
Yep.
Good AI, we all need it. Bad AI, we don't need it. Let good AI prevail. And
Lovely.
Damn it, Dev, that was my answer. I thought I was so clever with it, too. Anyway, sitting here in this beautiful February day, 70 degrees, possible tornadoes tonight, maybe it can help us solve the climate crisis,
Oh, I love
right?
that.
You
Yes,
know,
that's
give
fantastic.
us ideas we wouldn't normally come up with based on analyzing data.
Fantastic.
Mine would be sustainable agriculture.
All right. Yeah. Food for all. Fantastic. All right. We end this. If AI could dream, what would it dream about?
Hopefully responsibility.
Aha, nice.
Quantum computing.
If AI can dream, that'll make it sentient, right? So I hope it dreams and it has a nightmare and then wakes up.
I mean, it can dream.
Yes, it can dream.
And all the language you see, all the images that are created, those are the dreams of AI. Those are what come from it looking at the world and being asked a question, and then here's what I think. I think that the AI systems are dreamers to begin with, and the question is whether or not you want a dreamer taking care of your contract, writing your contract for you.
We do not.
All right, folks, with that, we thank our panelists.